been reading comics as much as I can.
Good.
And I've been reading, actually kind of by accident, I've been reading the Illuminati stories because of Doctor Strange. And then the Illuminati stories led into a new Avengers storyline about the incursions and them running around doing their Illuminati shit. And so I'm reading about the incursions, and that's super fun. But at the same time, there was apparently a war between Wakanda and Atlantis. A very, very bad war where Black Panther promised to kill Namor.
Yeah, Namor flooded Wakanda basically and killed a lot of people.
Yeah, anyway, the comics have been really good. I'm getting this whole incursion thing. I like that they're tying in Atlantis with the next Black Panther. It sounds like those two bitches are going to be at war.
Yeah, I did think that was cool because it was funny that once I saw they were using Namor, I was like, oh yeah, Namor. He's such a huge character in the comics. He really is. He appears in almost everything, just every once in a while. And I was like, oh yeah, I've never even thought of putting him in the movie yet. I guess because we have Aquaman in DC, so it just kind of, you don't really think about Marvel's version.
I'm very curious to see what Marvel does with Namor just because he's an asshole. How do you make him likable?
Well, yeah, but look what humans have done to the ocean all these years. Like, he has every right to be an asshole.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
How do you make him different from Jason Momoa's badass Aquaman is what I'm curious about.
Oh, God, with DC, they just need to just cut everything and start completely over.
I don't think they can. It's always been weird to me that, well, it hasn't been weird because this is the way superheroes movies were in the past, is that you just made them every once in a while and they didn't connect to anything. So if you wanted to have a new Batman, you had a new Batman. But now it's weird that in this world where they're trying to be connecting things, they still have things that exist where, like, TV Flash is over here, but movie Flash is this guy. Joker is this in the real thing, but he's also this with Joaquin Phoenix. Like, what are they doing? Now, they are making, from what I understand, good films and good television in their own way, and they're not messing with people who want to make separate things. I guess that's cool. But when you then tell the audience that this is all connected and we're making a world, how do you not get confused by all that?
And I think the biggest thing is Flash. It seems like they are pinning everything to this no matter what Ezra Miller does.
Fucked, man. They're fucked.
It's insane.
I was listening while I was reading what Kevin Smith was saying about it. Because everybody's like, well, I wonder what Kevin Smith thinks, because he's just like the podcast, comic, movie guy for, the past 20 years, 30 years. And yeah, I mean, he's just like, it just looks super bad that you cancel the Latina Batgirl movie, but you basically say, like, whatever Ezra Miller does, who's like turning into Charles Manson, is totally fine. Because we spent twice as much money on that movie. So, we got to go with it.
Are we on the same page that Michael Keaton was in the Batgirl movie?
Yeah, and he's in the Flash one, so I guess it's kind of like, if we're going to show Michael Keaton for the fans in one movie, which one should it be? And everybody's just like, I guess the Flash, it looks a little better.
Well, the Flash, I think, is going to introduce him, and then Batgirl would have come after. I don't know.
I have no idea, because I don't think the Flash comes out till next year.
Next year.
Yeah.
They're expecting this thing to shit gold, and they better not be wrong.
Yeah, even if it's good or even if it's bad, there's the anticipation factor where I think people are still going to see it because they're just like, see, and it's kind of like a marketing scheme now. Like, if they wanted to release Batgirl, it would be the biggest hit they've had probably in years because everybody's just like, is it a piece of shit? I got to check this out.
And I mean, again, it was just an HBO Max only movie. I don't know. Speaking of Kevin Smith, did you hear what he said the reason he was able to get Clerks 3 made was?
What?
He said Lionsgate came to him and said, the reboot he did, Jay and Silent Bob reboot, like, didn't do much in theaters if it was in theaters, but it did crazy good selling physical media.
Really?
Yeah, and they were like, if you want to make another one at a reasonable cost, you can make as many of these as you want, is basically what they said.
So people went out and bought the Blu-ray of the Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Is basically what he said, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he has an unofficial universe, View Askew-averse, right? And people want to continue collecting what they've collected since Clerks, I think. So I think you do own Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, on up, and you want that to add to your shelf. Maybe that's why. So he clearly has a big fan base. But it is funny to me to actually buy physical movies. Now, I still buy CDs, but which is probably even weirder. But that has repeat listenability to me, right? Like it's something I can always come back to, whereas a movie I probably watch it maybe once, maybe twice, unless it's a classic that I already owned anyways.
I mean, I'm sure there's some degradation with film and TV streaming signals, but we both know that music streaming severely degrades the audio.
Oh, severely. You get like 10% of what it is.
At least you have an argument with physical music that I don't, and I could be wrong. There could be a severe degradation to streaming, but for the most part, I don't think there's a major one.
No, and I know that fact about music, but honestly, it's never really bothered me because you don't really know. You can't really tell the difference unless you're a psycho.
4K is beyond our limit or for our eyes to pick up differences, isn't it? Once you get to a certain level of pixel density, the eye can't tell the difference anymore.
I don't know about that. I just know that it's all about size. Like 4K is just a bigger size than 1920 by 1080, which was the standard for a little while. And now they have 8K, so it's all about just size. I'm sure the eye can see it. I don't see why I couldn't.
No, I know all about this. Like because
Okay.
of phone screens, and it was like 443 pixels per inch or something like that.
Well, I can definitely tell a difference between HD and 4K when I look at it.
Okay, so everybody's saying a different number when I Google it. Some say the human eye can only see about 338 pixels per inch. A different one just said that they can see closer to 900 ppi. So, okay, we might have a little room to go.
I still feel that's kind of bullshit, though. That's kind of somebody trying to say how much memory your brain can hold.
You don't think they can quantify how good our vision can be?
About how many things you can see at once when it comes to a screen. Yeah, I don't think they can. I think that's somebody overthinking it and trying to figure it out.
No,
Yeah,
that's
I do.
science, you dweeb.
Really? You believe everything you read on the internet?
I am internet literate.
This leads me into something I just thought was mildly amusing. I wanted to read for you. I was watching Cheers on Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
I love that show. When I'm not doing audio editing, I like to have something, if I don't have to like really pay attention, I like to have something on, like music or shows. So I just play Cheers because it's not something I really have to super focus on. I just kind of get it on the peripheral,
Yeah, right now for me it's Superstore.
Oh, yeah, there you go. So, and then there was one episode where John Ratzenberger, who plays Cliff Clavin, right? Always had gray hair, mustache, the know-it-all in the bar. He tells his mom in one of the episodes that he was 38. And I'm just like, really? You're 38? When you're a kid watching these shows, everybody looks ancient to you. So I looked it up, and he actually was 38 in that year that they shot that season. So I'm like, wow, okay. He always looked at least like near 50. But looking it up, I had to check out the Wikipedia. So this is John Ratzenberger's Wikipedia. Born April 6, 1947. One of the most successful actors of all time in terms of box office receipts, along with Samuel L. Jackson, Robert Downey Jr., and Scarlett Johansson.
That I knew, actually.
But that's misleading, because you could argue, I think quite correctly, that the reason the movies are so successful is not because of John Ratzenberger being in all these Pixar movies.
That's why it said financially successful.
I know, but he said along with Samuel L. Jackson, Scarlett Johansson, and Robert Downey Jr. You could argue that the reason those movies are a success are because of those three actors actually starring in them. But nobody says like, ooh, the new John Ratzenberger Pixar film is out. Let's go check that out.
Yeah, I knew that fact, and I think that's very
Isn't
funny.
that hilarious? And
that bitch is rich.
The top of Wikipedia says, this article contains text that is written in a promotional tone. It needs help.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like he did his own Wikipedia. Are you ready to rumble?
I'm ready to rumble.
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Thanks. I'm glad you joined us today. Welcome to this very special episode of Aaron and Justin Talk Sequels. I'm Justin. Today I'm here with a very special guest. All the way from Delos, I have a Model 500. Can you say hi to the audience?
Hello.
And is your model programmed for sex?
I don't remember. Was it the 500 or the 600?
What we're talking about is the main problem with this sequel.
I'm sure that's not the main problem, but go ahead.
I started really on the fence and I moved into fan by the end.
I wonder when you pick these movies, the expectations you have, and then how your disappointment level is after you watch them. Because this doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes you pick these movies, and I just wonder, I'm like, was he happy with this choice after he watched it? Did he think it was going to be more than it was?
With this one, I picked Futureworld, the sequel to the mega popular 1973 classic Westworld, which is now popular because there's a HBO show dedicated to the same thing.
But they really shined it up. I don't think it's anything like the original. Just the basic idea.
Yeah, I had never seen either of these movies, and Aaron was just talking about if I regretted it. And in this instance, I do not. I enjoyed the hell out of myself. So have you seen the TV show?
I saw the first episode, but it got rapey. I know we've talked about this before, but after Game of Thrones, all of the time spent and the years spent into Game of Thrones, I just got tired of the violence against women and just the overall violence. Not that I'm against that. That's something that can be in media. But for me personally, I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's just too much.
Podcast host Aaron Russman advocates for the violence against women.
No. Only in entertainment.
In film and media.
Oh, yeah, well, you're right. I do. No, I'm not an advocate for it, but I'm not going to tell people they can't make the entertainment they want to make. Because it's not like it's just... Look, I'm not going to say like it was just abuse for abuse's sake. It led somewhere. I get that. But... when we watch the first Westworld, Ed Harris's character starts dragging the lead girl and she's screaming for her life like, I'm going to go rape you. I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm like, I just can't get into this. Now, you claim that was really it, and then it moves on from there, and that's nice to know, but it's just hard to get started now that I have about 20 different shows to watch.
Yes. Outside of the concept that the girl he's dragging into that barn is a robot.
Thank you for calling it a robot. That's excellent, because I listen to so many old radio shows, like sci-fi things from the 50s, and that is exactly how they would pronounce robot. They would always say robot. It's a robot. I think it's a robot.
So there's not a lot more of graphic rapiness in that first season, if I remember right. The robots are much more consensual because they're programmed for that to begin with.
But still, isn't there a better way to write the tragedies of females than to always go back to that well?
Well, okay, so in this specific instance, there is no rape on screen.
Sure.
They're inferring that something bad happened. And it's always possible in a show like Westworld, which I'm hinting at, and it's a fact, anytime something isn't explicitly said or seen, there's a very good chance that they are trying to lead you astray. The show has gone out of its way to do things like set up corporate websites for Devros that had clues about how the season was going to finish in it. Like, they were actively messing with the viewers as that first season went on. I don't know if they kept at it. So I definitely, at the very least, think you need to take the time to finish season 1.
I would like to think that's going to happen, but I also need to finish Obi-Wan and Stranger Things.
Yes.
And Boba Fett and Moon Knight.
Exactly. Like, we're on the same boat. There is one thing that I'm going to spoil about Westworld season 1. It's an Easter egg. At one point, they're going...
Brynner shows up.
Yes.
Kind of like how they put Schwarzenegger in that Christian Bale Terminator movie.
I don't remember Schwarzenegger in there.
He was the robot at the end. That he was being created in the lab, and Christian Bale breaks into Skynet, and the robot comes out, and it's, of course, Schwarzenegger, you know? Or like a deep fake kind of thing of him. It's
really apt that you mentioned Terminator when we talk about Westworld. I don't know if it's ever been stated in the show, because again, I fell off after season 2, but the unsaid concept is that they just kept building newer and better parks on top of the old stuff.
So this is the show's a continuation of the movie?
Is the basic idea, but again, more of an Easter egg and not any serious part of the plot or anything.
That is so Jurassic Park, isn't it? And Jurassic World now. It failed back then, but we'll try it again. That's Futureworld too.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk. We're talking Westworld. I don't know if it was fucking groundbreaking or not. The American science fiction Western, written and directed by Michael Crichton. I did not realize that Michael Crichton tried to direct, and how many movies did he actually end up directing?
Only a couple. It sounds like he kind of started in the movie world as a screenwriter and an author at the same time, maybe? Or maybe the author came, I don't know. But I think most people know Michael Crichton as an author who wrote Jurassic Park and numerous other things, Andromeda Strain, right? And then he created ER in the 90s.
Andromeda Strain, Binary, The Terminal Man, The Great Train Robbery,
Sphere.
Sphere, Jurassic Park,
right.
Disclosure, The Lost World,
Disclosure,
Timeline,
right.
Prey,
He was all over the place.
State of Fear, Next, Pirate Latitudes, Dragon Teeth. I don't even know what list this is that I'm reading off of.
Those are his books.
No, like it said list of selected works, but there's more than that. Eaters of the Dead, A Case of Need. This guy did a lot of really not strong, but entertaining science fiction.
Well, he was fairly original about stuff. And I think Westworld is where it started as far as it's a simple idea. But this is what led into, I think, inspired Terminator, number one. And also, this is clearly a initial first step at Jurassic Park. Like, Westworld is Jurassic Park, right? Except with robots instead of dinosaurs. Yeah. So this is kind of, he took Westworld and was like, I think I can improve on that. And then that's where Jurassic Park came from. And then, of course, Spielberg, who's a stronger director, arguably, than Michael Crichton, made it a hit that it is to this day.
Like the TV show, not to keep coming back to it, it shares a lot of similar themes with the first movie. It really does focus on two guys coming to the park, one who had never been there and one who's been there before. In the original, these characters are played by Richard Benjamin and James Brolin, who many people will know as the father of Thanos. It's crazy how some acting families where the son looks exactly like the dad. These two look so much alike.
You think that James Brolin and Josh Brolin look alike?
In this movie, you don't get whiffs of Josh Brolin?
I don't think so. Strangely, I think that, and I just mentioned him a minute ago in the Terminator movies, Christian Bale. I think that Christian Bale looks identical to a young James Brolin. I was like, well, he should have played James Brolin in an autobiography film or a biography film.
Okay, I need your opinion here. Who is hotter, James or Josh?
Damn.
In their youth.
Because I was just watching Hollow Man. Remember the Kevin Bacon movie? Josh Brolin's in
that. And he looks so...
So I'm basing...
Good movie.
I'm basing that on the 99 Josh Brolin and the 73, right? James Brolin. Yeah. Kind of a toss-up. I might have to say that James Brolin has the more classic, handsome look.
Yeah, I'm in James' camp here. Not only does he just look a little more classic, I know that Josh has a personality, but it just so happens that every movie that he's in demands that he either pretend he doesn't have one, or in fact he has no personality, and that's why his characters are always kind of... It's like the dude at the bar. It's one of those things where if you go into a public place and you see a person, you know immediately whether or not you want to talk to them. Does that make sense? Like, if I saw Josh Brolin in a bar,
no,
I would be scared to death to even approach him because I would think that he was a murderer. If James Brolin was in the bar, I would totally have a great time having a beer with him. Did that make sense?
He doesn't look friendly to you.
But yes, Josh Brolin is much more intimidating.
You know, we had and I don't remember what they are anymore, but charisma was one of the three that you had to have to be a success. And Josh Brolin may be a difficult subject to figure out if he really has charisma. But if you think about his characters and how good he's been in movies, he's not a mystery. Like, there's a reason he's popular. Thanos was a strong character, and his character in the famous Coen Brothers movie where he really...
No Country.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's great in that. Anyway, if this podcast about movies ever fails, we could have a successful one maybe about just talking about the handsomeness of male actors, because we've done this more than once.
I think it's a great bit, and I'm going to continue doing it. Now, the other character, the person who comes to the park and he's never been there before, because James Brolin has been there, and he acts as...
He acts like he's embarrassed that his friend is such a tourist, when he's just trying to be like, look, just be cool, man. I'm James Brolin. I've been here before. But like Richard Benjamin is just like, oh man, they really do this? Oh man, I can't wait to see this.
Right. These movies, there's a familiar trope in these where they have to explain to the audience what is happening.
Oh, it's excellent screenwriting, because how do you get across this information? Well, let's have one guy have already been there, so it makes perfect sense that he explains things. Yeah, it's great.
But there's the other part where we see them entering the park and they get those basic introductions about the rules of the park from the park itself. It's another great sheet there that you see over and over, especially just like with Jurassic Park. They spend that first half of the movie having the park explain all of the rules to them.
And going back to what you said at the beginning, I do think this movie is groundbreaking, especially in 73, because if you imagine 73 audiences going to see this kind of movie, the idea of having a theme park on that level was still pretty new, because I think Disney World had just opened up like the year before. I think it was like 72.
And this is what they're ripping off, right? They're ripping off Disney
Basically,
World, aren't they?
Yeah, but like Disneyland was its own thing since the 60s. We get that. But I think Disney World is really what took off on the whole, like, having a vacation that's an experience for you. So that's where Westworld's coming from. And a lot of people probably hadn't experienced that kind of thing. So I do feel like they are really seeing things like, wow, wouldn't that be amazing?
It's funny that Disney triggers these anti-consumerism movies about a fully immersive world that they can live in and pretend. And then Disney takes the cue to go ahead and start making fully immersive experiences.
Well, I think these sci-fi writers historically have always been very prescient, is that the word? And that they know the future. Like, they see it coming. We all see it coming, but we just give into it anyways because it's so much fun. But they're trying to tell us that, like, yeah, it's fun. Could be dangerous, though.
If the audience doesn't know about this, Disney has a cruise that doesn't actually go anywhere, that simulates, it's in reality just a hotel shaped like a spaceship. The guests pay, I want to say something like $1,000
a day.
And they live in this completely immersive experience where everybody's like, this is on a spaceship, and the entire experience is supposed to be like that. Like, I want to try it because it's like Westworld, but not.
One of the best meals we had, experiences at Disney World this year, was Space 220. It's just a restaurant, but you have to take the turbo lift to go up the sky, the space pole or whatever they call it, and you go to the space station that's above Orlando. So you actually get in the elevator and it moves you, like, you don't go anywhere, but you feel like you are, and it's very realistic. And then you go and you have dinner and there's like spaceships flying by the windows. It's like you're on the Enterprise, and then you have to take the lift back down, and, you know, obviously you don't go anywhere, but it's so lifelike. It was so much fun. It's the experience. That's what people want, is the experience.
Yeah, so Disney is totally doing Westworld except without the fucking and killing robots.
But all the sci-fi writers are saying that if you're not careful, there could be killing robots that could take over. But we don't want to hear it because we're just like, it's worth the risk.
So the other guy in Westworld, played by Richard Benjamin, which is somebody that I wasn't familiar with as an actor. Did you know this guy?
I knew him from Westworld, but I do believe he appeared in maybe one or two other things that I was like, oh yeah, right, he was in that too. But I think he's mostly a director.
Yeah, like, he's got acting credits sporadic, but yes, his directing career, we've got City Heat, which I've never seen, The Money Pit with
Money Pit, right?
Tom
right.
Hanks,
That's how I knew.
Little Nikita, My Stepmom is an Alien, Made in America, Milk Money, and then he starts doing a bunch of TV movies. But he had a directing career that was notable for at least 10, 15 years.
I remember enjoying Milk Money just because Melanie Griffith, right? Isn't she in that?
That sounds
and
right.
Ed Harris. She just was such a, like, for lack of a better term, like a sex kitten in that movie, that as a young adolescent, I just was like, wow, like, she's just got this, like, this vibe to her that was very enthralling. Anyway, but I don't remember the movie being necessarily that great, but I remember Ed Harris was in it. But the 90s were a good time for those kind of movies.
Yeah. So this movie focuses, like, there's only a few characters. It's really just Richard Benjamin, James Brolin, and Yul Brynner as a robot gunfighter.
Who basically is reprising his character from The Magnificent Seven. They were just kind of having fun with that. But most people would probably know Yul Brynner from either The King and I or Ten Commandments.
I want to say he's the most famous bald man of all time.
That's possible.
But then Patrick Stewart pops up.
As far as classic Hollywood goes, I will give you that.
Yeah, women loved him. So they run around Westworld. They just goof around and have fun. James Brolin only wants to fucking get drunk. Richard Benjamin wants to go on the adventures.
Well, because Westworld stands for Western World. So there's three worlds. There's Westworld,
Yes,
Roman World, and
Medieval
world. So you can go and have these immersive experiences where, like, you're in late 1800s or mid 1800s America, the West, you know. So you can get drunk at a saloon, or you can go on, like, you know, having to shoot somebody at high noon or rob a bank. Oh, you can kill people.
Yeah. So on the back end, we are finding out that they're noticing issues with the robots. They're malfunctioning in ways that they don't expect them to. What are some examples? Oh, we have a snake that actually bites James Brolin.
And one of the sex bots refuses the advances of a guest, which is unheard of.
Yes.
She's programmed for sex.
Okay, in Westworld, did they ever say their models?
Oh, the numbers. I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. I think they do.
It's one of my main issues with Futureworld. Because, like, in Westworld, the robots don't really break character. In Futureworld, the robots are all like, I am a Model 500. I am programmed for sex. That's not the reality that Westworld built up. Westworld built an immersive experience where you're never sure who's who.
Well, Futureworld definitely uses the model number of the characters as plot points. The only way they can get by these robots is because they're a 400 and they don't pay attention to them. Yeah, whereas Westworld, that's what I like about it, is that you don't know who's a robot and who's not. And that's what worried me about being a guest there. I'm like, the guns don't fire if they sense a warm body. That's the only protection they have from you killing somebody. But you could still get in a fight and kill somebody with a knife or something, thinking they're a robot, but they're just another guest.
Yeah, there's definitely some plot holes there.
It's kind of like, I'm going to make a movie about a theme park that goes crazy. It doesn't really matter why. It just can be dangerous if you give yourself over to a complete experience where you trust in technology. That's all Michael Crichton's trying to say. Just one of the people just kind of says, it seems like there's a virus and it's spreading. And that's the only reason they give for why things go crazy.
Essentially, yeah, a computer virus.
Which, again, is kind of new to 1973 audiences. So they hear that and they believe it. And they go, oh, a virus. Interesting. I wonder if this is where virus began, from this movie. And that's why we use that term to this day. Because he doesn't say it's a computer virus. He says it's like a virus.
It's true, yeah.
He explains it like humans get sick. So I wonder if this movie created the term.
If you know the answer to this, please tweet at us, because we're not going to look it up. So the androids turn on people and start killing people. And I'm using a bit of the Westworld TV show to fill in some blanks for myself. In medieval world, the girl refused him sex. Or was it the queen? He fucked one of these robots, and the robot was not happy about it.
It might have been the queen who wasn't happy about it.
So the queen basically gets the Black Knight to kill him. The queen is basically angry that this guy fucked around and he got what he got. So that's the first death. So these robots, their virus that they're having, they're kind of remembering what these people, these guests, did to them, and they're holding grudges.
Okay.
So Brynner has been killed twice by the character played by Benjamin. So he's pissed. And so he goes to, the two guys get into just a wild, drunken fucking brawl at the bar, and they wake up both happy as hell, and they walk outside, and once again, the gunslinger is there, and the gunslinger kills James Brolin. I was enjoying my time with James Brolin so much.
Right, and I just thought, the first time I saw this movie years ago, I just remember thinking like, oh, well, that subverts it right there. I thought James Brolin would be the survivor.
So yeah, the rest of the movie is essentially chaos. The Benjamin, his name's Peter Martin in the movie, trying to escape Brynner as the gunslinger.
And this is where the movie really takes a turn for me, where I love Westworld. I really do like the movie, but it is so boring at the end.
Yes.
Like the last 20, 30 minutes, whatever it is. It's just super boring. But I'm not saying it makes it bad, but he just really has to just get away. And that's all he does. He just tries to hide and run and hide and run. And then he comes up with a couple ways to maybe stop the robot, but it doesn't really work until he just burns him up. And then that's it. And then he's just like, oh, shit, let me sit down for a minute. That was rough. And that's just how the movie ends.
It ends with the Richard Benjamin character yelling out the tagline for the movie. It was fine. It felt like this climactic anti-corporate statement where you can't trust corporations, you can't trust robots. And he's just yelling about how great of a vacation it was supposed to be. Boy, have we got a vacation for you, is what he yells.
It's kind of like when Bruce Willis in Die Hard was like, hey, come to the coast, have a few laughs, you'll have a great time. You know, he kind of says it to himself, like, and now look at the shit I'm in. That's what it reminded me of.
And it was good. Like, this movie was so inventive and original. Like, I know that there's a lot of science fiction before this. I don't know. This movie's just good.
I do love 70s science fiction. Many years ago, I was really into it. So I was watching like Westworld, Logan's Run, Soylent Green. Well, then, of course, you have Star Wars, the motion picture, or Star Trek, the motion picture, Star Wars, Yeah, 70s sci-fi, it just has a certain charm to it because the graphics aren't that great, but the modeling is pretty fun, and they come up with inventive ways to show you giant worlds on a small scale.
Really off topic, Star Trek, the motion picture being a response to Star Wars, I love what they did with it. That's one of my favorite science fiction movies of the 70s.
It's pretty good, but like Westworld, it's very slow. But not slow in a way I appreciate. It's slow in a kind of like, oh, isn't this over yet? Where I appreciate the slowness of 2001: A Space Odyssey. It kind of like feels more artsy to me. But when you get to a movie like Westworld or Star Trek: The Motion Picture, I just feel like you gotta speed it up a little bit. Like you're trying to tell an entertaining action sci-fi story. Why so slow?
I like the pace that it takes.
Yeah. Again, it doesn't make it a bad movie. That's why I wouldn't shit on Westworld. But I am bored at the end, is all I'm saying.
Oh, Westworld is much slower than Star Trek, in my opinion.
No, I think it's a little faster. I think Star Trek is a little too slow, especially because, I don't know, you have all those characters, and yet they focus on the bald girl and the dude from Seventh Heaven, right? It just gives over too much to them, and it's just very slow. Whatever.
I know. There's a lot of ways you can criticize a bunch of stuff. But overall, big fan. So movie was a big hit, made $10 million on its $1 million budget.
Sweet.
Which is a pretty good return. Crichton didn't have any interest in doing a sequel, but the producers did, but MGM didn't. But they got AIP, American International Pictures, to make it.
Yeah. Now that is Roger Corman's company. And Roger Corman is the schlock master because he's made a lot of fast cars, sexy movies, B-type stuff. But he's also been responsible for creating and working with so many directors who are some of the best in the field, that we've ever seen.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. He's probably respected in the right communities. But
he is very respected.
By the general public, I think he's not appreciated enough.
I think that's it, yeah.
I want to do the studying sometime to read about studio histories and who buys them, because it says in the notes that AIP became Orion, which I know Orion clearly from the 80s. So they get this guy. They got a couple people, Mayo Simon and George Schenck, to write a script, and it was directed by, we're talking Futureworld now, the 1976 sequel, directed by Richard Heffron.
Which is the world that didn't exist in Westworld, because you don't want to do a sequel to Westworld called Medieval World or Roman World. Those kind of were dumb.
So you see at the beginning that it's 3 years later, and Devros has invested billions into
I think it's Delos, isn't it?
Oh, it is Delos. There's no V. Delos has spent more than $1 billion getting all the issues corrected. The plot of this movie is that they're sending in 2 reporters to just have full access to the newly relaunched park so that they can show that everything is fine. So that's the basic concept.
But hey, I gotta hand it to them. 3 years later, and like 70 guests were murdered, and they're just like, it's been 3 years. We'll reopen as something else.
Okay, yeah.
Nobody will care.
There's a lot of Futureworld is not as strong of a film as Westworld. This movie opens with the leaders of Delos having a meeting with what's essentially CNN, and they're just talking to them about how the park is reopened, and they're showing film from the murder of all these people.
Yeah.
Like, hey, CNN, do you want to watch behind the scenes footage of all these people being murdered? And CNN's just calling me like, so how many, we had about 50 deaths, and we had about 90 employees killed, and like nobody's blinking an eye.
It kind of shows that like this world's humanity is really void of sympathy or empathy in any way. They're almost robots in themselves. Maybe there's a bigger story to this, and that humanity is almost robots and they don't even know how to get their kicks anymore. That's why these worlds are so important to humanity, because they don't know what to do with themselves otherwise. They need to pretend to be something with a soul.
These movies definitely had a strong message, a strong anti-corporate message in them. I feel like the 70s is full of that. The 70s is probably pretty close to where we're at right now. Political turmoil, war. Yeah. Anyway. Oh, and one thing that the movie was prescient about, they make this clear that this big news organization, its biggest star is a TV show host. They show very clearly that print is kind of way number 2. Ooh, I got really lost here. I'm gonna back.
Well,
that up.
Blythe Danner plays the TV host, and she's
the great
given
Blythe Danner.
She's given complete access to go to Delos and show the new park, or at least one of the parks, because they have 5 now. But then Peter Fonda, who plays the print reporter, is like, well, I want to go too, and he kind of worms his way into there as well, and she's not very happy about that. But they have a history being friends. I don't know, were they together in the past? I can't really remember. He calls her Socks because she had ugly red socks on once, and now he just calls her Socks all the time.
Well, in the movie, they talk about how she used to work for him, but he fired her.
Gotcha.
Peter Fonda is the newspaper writer that broke the story and was most critical of the accident at Westworld 3 years ago.
Right.
And so, yes, they are both get to go. But the only reason that Peter Fonda wants to go is because he has a meeting with a former employee named something funny. Frenchie, who is murdered.
Right in front of him.
Right in front of him.
Because Frenchie apparently had some insider information, because Peter Fonda rightfully is thinking like, well, I know what happened at Westworld. Delos is still not being honest with us. There's something up with Futureworld and these new worlds that they've created. I'm going to find out what it is. Whereas Blythe Danner's like, everything's fine now. I don't know why you're so negative about this. You're not going to find anything there.
On the plane over, they see that it's, again, because the park is so expensive to go to, it's only the rich that can go. There's a Japanese politician. There's a Russian general. There's a guy that won a game show and won a trip there.
There are a lot of heads of states going.
Yes.
And that's the first weird thing that Peter Fonda picks up on. And now there's Future Worlds. There's no more Westworld. Medieval World still, Roman World still, Spa World. And then there's one more, because I know there's 5, but I can't remember what that one is.
In the lobby, they had 5 bubbles showing each park. So they had expanded to 2 more parks. But one of the bubbles was gray, and I think it said under construction. I think the idea is that was going to be the Japanese world.
Is it the future, or is it modern day?
Future.
Like the 80s?
I'm sure.
I feel like it was like 87. So they get there.
And they initially do the Future World launch experience, and they're just there. It feels like they did that just so we could see some neat far out stuff before we got into them running around in the tunnels for the rest of the movie.
Right, because they're using NASA footage. They're also big on the fact that, like, hey, we got the the Johnson Space Center. I think Kennedy's the one that's in Florida, right? Or is Kennedy the one that's in Houston? Whatever. They shot in Houston, and they actually used, like, NASA, so they wanted to show that off.
I feel like the movie mostly stumbles around, with Peter Fonda mostly wandering around going, I'm going to find out what they're up to.
And he very luckily does. Little piece by piece, he finds bizarre things going on.
Does he, or does he just get told the entire story by Harry?
Maybe that's it.
Okay, in their travels, they find out 2 things. Almost all of the employees are robots, and one of the only remaining human workers, named Harry, has been stalking them. And he makes friends with them, and he's willing to be interviewed by them because she's so famous that he just wants to be famous too, I guess.
And he wants to tell his story, I guess, but he is afraid to, but he really wants to. So it's kind of a convergence of all those things that convinces him, like, okay, so then he starts giving up some details about some of the shit that's going on there.
If you know there's something wrong, why wouldn't you just say, you guys should get out of here immediately? There's something wrong here.
Was Harry completely aware of what they were doing with the world leaders?
No, because he had never been in that room. That's true. My favorite line in this movie is Harry shows Peter Fonda the door, and he's like, that's the only room I haven't been into in this entire place, right?
Yeah.
And then when they go in, his first words are, that's never been there before.
Yeah, they realize they can only get in if they're a robot, so then Peter Fonda helps Harry, and they steal a head of a robot, and they use it to get in there, or a face of a robot, and they use it to get in there. And Yul Brynner makes another appearance in this movie, but he's only in some bizarre dream sequence that Blythe Danner has.
Really don't understand why they brought him in.
Just because he was the most well-known part of the first one. That's really it.
It has to be. I mean, Yul Brynner famously died of lung cancer and recorded an anti-smoking TV ad Have you ever seen the ad?
I haven't seen the ad, no.
I haven't either, but I want to watch it now because apparently he's supposed to like look at the screen and directly address everybody for like 30 seconds.
Yeah, he was doing some sort of interview, and then he was like, "Can I just talk to the screen?" or something like that. And then he like said something, and then like the anti-tobacco people they got permission to use it, and then they actually used it in ads. And rightfully so. The guy's like, I probably would live longer, but now I'm dying, and by the time you see this, I'll be dead.
Yeah, Futureworld was his last American film, second to last total film. It's crazy because he looks so good here. I expected him to look older, and I don't know why, because it's only a few years later.
So anyway, let's just get to the point.
Okay.
What Delos is doing while these world leaders and even the reporters are sleeping, the teams of robots, I imagine, because they're all robots and employees, are taking the people and basically, is it considered cloning, or they're just making robot versions of them?
They specifically say clone.
But I don't think they mean it in the biological way. I think they mean it in like the duplicate way.
The doctor specifically said there's no robot pieces. These are all real. Like, he actually says it in the movie, dude.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that. But why would that be their business now?
And
why would you still make robots when you could make people? Wouldn't making people be better for your sex bots?
Okay, here's where it was apt that you talked about Terminator earlier, because what we're really getting is the origin story for Skynet coming online. Because we get through to the end of this movie and we figure out that, tell me if I'm wrong, that the robots have replaced all of the important people at Davos, and it's the robots that are changing out world leaders. And why are they doing that? Because humans are destroying the Earth.
But doesn't it end with... but it feels like it feels like a missed opportunity for Delos, because Delos basically says we're replacing all of the world's leaders and even you reporters who can go back and talk about how great Delos is, because that'll be in our favor. They'll help us expand our property, and we'll be able to be a successful theme park because everybody will be on our side. Where I'm just like, really? That's what you're worried about? You're replacing world leaders? It seems like you could take over the planet. Maybe you want to set your sights a little higher.
Well, and I think it's because like they all replaced each other with the same rules. You can't hurt Delos. You have to listen to what Delos says. But it turns into this fun loop where they are Delos. So they only... I don't know if they have as much creative thought as much as robots just doing as they were told. So I like the thought that at some point there was a human that was like, all right, let's get some robots out into the real world to get us some positive press.
Yeah.
And then eventually that guy got replaced by a robot.
But it was the main dude that was showing him around, he turns out to be a robot. But the weird doctor, who was always a little standoffish, he's still a human though, I believe, right? Or is he a robot too?
They never specifically say.
So there's actually like a hidden meaning where like he thinks he's still in charge because he's a human, and this plan of his to make Delos look good is working, whereas the robots are actually in charge, have now replaced all of the world leaders and are going to take over and become Skynet.
Yes.
But he doesn't see that happening. And that's how the movie ends, where the real Peter Fonda and the real Blythe Danner made them think they're robots, and now they're going to go back and tell the world about the realness of all of this and close the place down.
See, I disagree. I absolutely think real
But that's
Peter
that's what it makes you think is
Yes.
happening, but I don't know if it really is.
I absolutely think the real Peter Fonda died.
Okay.
It was clear that she shot her robot because they made sparks fly off of her clone robot, even though, so whatever, say that it's all real and then show sparks. Whatever. But yeah, Peter Fonda, it definitely seemed like his or that
they left it a bit of a mystery, didn't they?
They made it real impossible to see with his.
But he gave him the arm, like the fuck you arm at the end. So why would the robot do that?
They have the same brain. So he thought he was Peter Fonda. This movie did so many fun things, even though it was flawed. Where they were having the debate with themselves about knowing what each other was thinking and what each other was going to do. That was some great clone shit. Like, I like that they went there. And so, yeah, they leave. We don't know for sure if they're real or not. They kind of leave as the victors because the story is going to get run in the paper that Delos is bad, but we don't know what story he phoned in. He could have phoned in a story that says the new park is perfect, you should come, because he could be completely lying to the girl Like, it's fun.
It's a little better of a movie to me now that I think about, like, it ends thinking the humans are in charge, but actually the robots are the ones that won.
And this movie didn't do nearly as well. It had double the budget and made half as much money.
And so Peter Fonda, this is usually your question.
Yeah.
Is he a good actor?
Yes. I
He is?
love Peter Fonda. I was just going to say, like, so this movie is really mixed in terms of how good it is, but the performances of Blythe Danner and Peter Fonda carry it along because they are engaging as fuck, even when they're doing stupid shit.
I just don't know about Peter Fonda, and I'm usually always standing up for actors, but even like Easy Rider, which he's most famous for, he's just kind of blah. Like, he's just kind of exists to be a Fonda. I'm Henry Fonda's son, so therefore I'm part of a amazing acting family with Jane. But I just don't think he's really that. I've never thought he's that talented. I just think that he plays himself always, and that's all you get.
See, what I was going to say with Peter Fonda is that he is the budget Robert Redford.
Holy shit, you're right. That's exactly what he is. Because that's who he wanted to be. He wanted that kind of career, and he never worked out that way. But because he's a Fonda, he's always been well known. He's been fairly famous. So he does get choice roles, but he's never been able to, he was never able to be the Redford that he wanted to be.
This role, you could replace Peter Fonda with Robert Redford, and I don't know if much would change.
Oh my God, Futureworld would be so much better with Robert Redford. Because Redford would have come in and been like, we got to do something a little different than me just walking through a bunch of fucking utility areas and do something. Like, he
climbing
probably would come up with
ladders,
something.
Figuring out yes. So that's a great discovery.
God damn, I wish we could have. But he was busy doing better movies.
Yes, he was.
What are you going to do? So that's Futureworld. Which I like. It was fun. I'm glad I saw it finally. I've heard about it for years.
So let's talk this out, though. Them talking about the models completely breaks the immersion. And you could probably say that they added that to improve guest safety because the guests would all know which people were robots and not.
You could say that.
But it creates a vacation that's more like a traditional vacation with rules. At Westworld, you went, you did what you felt like, and it was done. Like, even in this one where the guest had the camera and they're letting him get away with it, I don't think it was bad screenwriting.
Yeah, I feel like it was just contrivances to move the plot along. Well, these robots are dumb, so they won't stop you from searching or even care that you're here. Like, there was no reason for that other than for that purpose. How could he possibly get past security? Well, we'll just say these robots are stupid.
And they have no cameras in this park. They clearly recorded the entire slaughter of all the guests in the first Westworld.
I mean, it was shot by like a cinematographer. It was amazing.
Blythe Danner. This I never knew before, and I wanted to just share with the audience, is the mother of Gwyneth Paltrow.
You didn't know that?
I didn't know that.
That's what she's probably most famous for.
Oh.
Her acting career, like, nobody really knows what she's been in, I feel like.
How dare you?
I like her. I'm not saying she's bad, but I think people mostly know that she's Gwyneth Paltrow's mom. That's all.
No, people mostly know her from the Meet the Parents movies.
Yeah, but as what's her name? I don't know, but she's the mom in Meet the Parents.
Yeah.
That's all. But you know it's Robert De Niro. You don't know it's Blythe Danner. You can't remember her name.
It's true, and that's not fair.
Gwyneth Paltrow's mom. That's all I'm saying.
It's not fair.
She's fine. She's all good.
The star of 1776 and Hearts of the West shouldn't be treated like that. I don't know what those movies are. I'm sorry.
I just like seeing her as a cool 70s reporter. I thought that was fun, and I'm glad I got to see Blythe in that role instead of just the mom roles she would go on to play, like most female actresses that aren't Meryl Streep.
This movie brought up the sexuality a lot more than Westworld did. It was more just on its sleeve. I don't know if it was just the worst or not as good screenwriting. Everybody was sexy, and like Peter Fonda and her hook up. When they hook up, you kind of just go, yeah, I can see that. And you don't have any thoughts about it just because the whole movie is so pro-sex. I don't have better words for it.
Yeah, no, I think they saw growing up to the 60s and when the sexual revolution happened, they just figured it would continue into the 80s and it would just be a world of free love, man. Like, no problems. They didn't know what was to come, the Reagan years and the AIDS and the religious right and everything. And I maybe would prefer to live in Futureworld's future than what we actually got, so who knows. But let me put it this way. If you replace Peter Fonda with Robert Redford, it makes a better movie. If you replace Blythe Danner, as much as I love her, with Jane Fonda, that would have been an amazing movie. Robert Redford, James Fonda in Futureworld, I'd watch the hell out of that.
Yeah.
Because those are two arguably stronger actors. Peter Fonda is not anywhere near as good of an actor as his sister is, Jane. That's all I'm saying.
And I'm sad that the Fonda legacy feels like it's kind of dying until there's like a grandkid.
I think that's okay. I mean, does every fucking family have to have kids and then they become actors? And I just feel like it's ridiculous. It's been going on forever. I'm just tired of it.
Nepotism is never good, but we also know that nepotism doesn't always work. As in, Tom Hanks's kids.
What's his name?
Colin.
He's a great character actor, though, because he knew his place. He's not trying to do what his dad was doing by trying to lead movies. Like, he's made a successful career as just being a character actor, and I think that's the way to go.
There's a lot of actors, or there's a lot of children of actors that get a chance and burn out. Is more my point is that, like, nepotism gets them a chance, but they have to have the actual skills to make it as much as somebody else.
For the most part, I guess I agree with that.
And again, nepotism is
like
bad.
Scott Eastwood or some shit like that, Clint Eastwood's son.
Yeah.
He just pops up everywhere trying to be, I'm going to finally get that lead movie. And I'm like, it's not going to happen, buddy.
No, it's not going to happen.
But some of our favorite actors are the children of other actors. So I feel it's unfair to say that it's nepotism because, like, Jeff Bridges, we wouldn't have Jeff Bridges. You know, he's the son of a great actor. You know, like,
and Jeff Bridges is a great actor.
Michael from our next podcast, Jewel of the Nile, or from our previous one.
Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas. You know, Kirk's son. So yeah. I guess it's not fair.
Yeah, we don't have to talk. We know that nepotism's bad. I don't have to go any further than that.
It's not bad in my eyes. It's just annoying. That's all it is.
I feel like there's a whole world of people that would probably be amazing actors, but they'll never be able to be found because it's such luck. Yeah, let's wrap up. Final thoughts on these two movies.
I got nothing. I already gave you my final thoughts. Has Westworld covered any territory that Futureworld has done? Just for fun, Easter eggs type things? Did they go to Mars and ski down the red snow of Mars?
I'm not going to reveal any more about the Westworld TV show. It's something you need to experience all on your own.
Just give me a yes or no. Do they
not
allude
sharing
to Futureworld in any way?
Anything else about the show? But you should watch it because I enjoy it. I'm excited for Aaron Paul to join the cast in season 3.
Hey, how about Apple TV? Do you watch anything on Apple TV aside from Ted Lasso?
Not really. There's some good stuff.
I mean, we tried the morning show. We watched the first episode.
And that was good.
As far as we got in that. Yeah, it's not bad. But I hear John Hamm's joining the new season. That's pretty nice.
That subject matter I don't love.
The news business, yeah, I know. I was watching the Jon Stewart show for a little bit.
There's a really big sci-fi show. Foundation. Right. Yep. I don't know if it's supposed to be good, but those books are so beloved.
They just made I was looking at it yesterday because we were watching Ted Lasso. Actually, we're finally back to that. But I was just scanning through Apple, and I'm just like, God, they've put so much money and work into making shows that I just don't know if anybody's watching. Right. Severance seems to be something that everybody's into right now.
Yeah, I've watched the first episode, and it's got such a great premise. Do you know the premise?
Yeah, I think Ben Stiller directs it, doesn't he?
Yeah, or created it or directs it, one of the two.
I don't know the premise. What is the premise?
The premise is amazing. There's a company. I don't know what they actually do, but I'm assuming it's secret. Due to the secret nature of the work, sections off your brain so that when you're at home, you have no memory of what you did at work, and while you're at work, you have no memory of at home. So it's like you're basically two different people. And it's a fun thought that you get to work and not remember what happened at work and just never think about it.
I think a lot of people feel for that show because people have jobs sometimes that they would rather remember or forget they completely have probably.
But it's very dystopian.
But it's got comedic edge to it.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Because I've been curious about that. It seemed fun. And I liked how hearing Ben Stiller was a part of it. That seemed refreshing to me just because there's so many new creators doing new things where it almost felt like I would like to see how Ben Stiller would navigate this new world of streaming and Apple TV and stuff like that. That seemed interesting to me.
I think Ben Stiller has always been, not always, I think he's been focused on behind the scenes stuff for a while in terms of production and direction.
Yeah. Well, he has always done his directing. He's like picked his directing carefully, it seems like. Like, not everyone's worked, but he's definitely been choosy about it, and that's what I like about Ben Stiller.
Yeah, like he's more, I don't know what the right words are there, but he's always been more interested in behind the camera than acting itself.
Because, like, I feel like Jon Favreau is also interesting, but for every Iron Man he made, or he didn't do Swingers, but I don't know, he's had a couple interesting ones, but he also has done, like, The Jungle Book and The Lion King, and just, like, throwaway shit for, like, big companies, you know? But that's what, like, Stiller stayed away from, and I like that.
Oh, yeah,
like I'm
Favreau's
just going to do reality bites, and
definitely.
then I'll do Zoolander.
Yeah. Favreau's definitely
Anyway.
a company guy.
Yeah.
And I like that he gets to focus on Star Wars right now.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's like his cool thing he's doing is The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
But like for every Mandalorian, he does The Jungle Book. I don't know.
Yeah, but
It just
when
seems weird.
he's a writer in the room, that's when you see the results that people love. When he's just working on somebody else's shit, then it's just whatever. All right. Final thoughts on Westworld. I think these movies were awesome. And I don't know if it's just Crichton being the futurist that he is, but yeah, these movies seem very timely and prescient, even though they always, what is it with futurists? Never, I don't know if it's right to call Crichton a futurist.
I don't know either, but I don't think it would be insulting to include him along with the other great sci-fi authors. He came up with some original ideas that have furthered our entertainment since then. And he was maybe one of the only guys in the 70s doing it, you know, because all the other guys were like 40s, 50s, 60s, you know, that kind of Asimov and Bradbury and those kind of guys. So I think you could include him in there because he came up with some interesting future ideas that we're still running with today.
Yeah. Anyway, I think these movies are good because of Crichton, and I think Westworld's an all-timer. Futureworld tries to recognize that it can't just do the same thing again, but it's just,
I give it credit for that.
Clunky about what it is doing. Even though if you really,
That's a good word.
both of these movies, you can spend a little while thinking about all of the pieces and how they fit together, and it makes a movie worth thinking about just a little bit.
It's almost like if you made a third movie for this franchise, you would probably have more respect for Futureworld. Like you would see a connecting tissue in what they were trying to do and how it was trying to be a little different than its predecessor.
Yeah, in closing, these movies were good. I was a fan, and I can't wait till what we watch next. Thank you, everyone. Please rate, review, subscribe, tune in to all of our past episodes. Tweet at Aaron. He loves it.
Let me know if you want anything in a physical media. I can rip a couple MPEGs, MP4s onto a CD and send it out to our listeners if you prefer.
That's fucked up. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.